Judith Butler's canonical text, Gender Trouble, Feminism and the Subversion of Identity, is regularly cited as a pillar of gender and queer studies because of its innovative premise suggesting that gender is performed rather than predetermined by sex. Although Butler's notion of gender as a performance permeates modern critical scholarship, it's only begun to seep into public consciousness on a grand scale, a reality that notable photographer Leland Bobet saw as an opportunity. In an interview with Petapixel of October 12, 2013, Bobet explained that to eviscerate normative ideas of gender as this binarized construct, he began photographing a group of individuals uniquely accustomed to shattering the physical barriers between males and females, drag queens. However, to more fully illustrate the performed and fluid nature of gender, Bobet asked these queens to do the unthinkable, pose for their close-ups, only half in drag. Leland Bobet's Half Drag, a different kind of beauty, captures drag queens and the men behind the mascara in a single image to illuminate how one individual can embody multiple genders simultaneously. Bobet's work, which forces audiences to reevaluate the fluidity of gender, warrants the following research question. How does Leland Bobet's Half Drag series utilize traditional depictions of masculine and feminine identities to subvert the gender binary? To answer this question, we turn to Becky Francis's article, Gender Monoglossia, Gender Heteroglossia, the potential of Bakhtín's work for reconceptualizing gender, published in the March 2012 issue of the Journal of Gender Studies. Francis analyzes how Mikhail Bakhtín's literary theories of monoglossia, which is to say dominant forms and fixed characterizations in language, and heteroglossia, referring to the fluidity within those dominant forms and characterizations, can be applied to the lived performance of gender. This model is apt for our analysis because it deconstructs the dominant belief in only two viable gender options. By understanding Francis's model and applying it to Bobet's Half Drag series, we can expound upon some critical implications of a project that challenges traditional definitions of sex and gender by quite literally showing the beautiful and the raw side of drag performers. In developing her model, Francis details three tenets for subverting the gender binary: incorporating impossible subjects, parroting the account of gender duality, and dissociating gender and sex. The first tenet, incorporating impossible subjects, consists of having a subject who doesn't fit within the dominant gender matrix constructed by society. Francis observes that intersex and trans individuals, even butch women and effeminate men, don't fit neatly within dominant prescriptions of gender. Thus, their existence, with respect to these artificially stringent gender binaries, is made to seem impossible. The second tenet, parroting the account of gender duality, ruminates on the concept of a gender performance or presentation that is incongruous or over the top to the extent that it highlights the coexistence of the gender binary within a single subject. Francis notes that gender has been parodied throughout history, pointing to the specific example of the flamboyant garb worn by men in the early 17th and 18th centuries. In other words, their performance of masculinity was so exaggerated and over the top that their actual physical appearance began to take on elements of femininity, not unlike metrosexual men today. The second tenet, parroting the account of gender duality, ruminates on the concept of this gender performance and essentially then leads us to the final idea of dissociating gender and sex. To elucidate this point, Francis gives the example of Helen, a female student who dressed in a skirt, wore makeup, and kept long-groomed hair, yet simultaneously employed masculine communication strategies, such as leading group exercises, advising other pupils in their work, and even deriding boys that she believed were too much like girls. In this way, Helen's gender performance directly contradicts the expectations of her biological sex, thus dissociating these aspects of her identity. With an understanding of the fundamental components of Francis's model, we can now apply it to Bobet's Half Drag series. The first tenet, incorporating impossible subjects, requires the use of a subject who does not fit within the dominant gender matrix constructed by society. While dominant cultural understandings privilege the dichotomous either-or nature of sex and gender, Bobet strategically places his subjects within contradictory camps, allowing them to embody both femininity and masculinity simultaneously. It is through the concurrent performance of seemingly dichotomous genders that Bobet's subjects are made to seem impossible, thus fulfilling the first tenet. The second tenet, parodying the account of gender duality, focuses on a performance or presentation that is hyperbolic to the extent that it illuminates the fluidity of gender. In Bobet's half-drag series, he is able to exaggerate the gender binary by literally dividing his subjects into masculine and feminine characteristics. On one half, makeup, hair treatment, and accessories are used, while the other half is undeniably masculine. By dividing his subjects in half, Bobet is able to parody both feminine and masculine gender concepts within individual actors, thus fulfilling the second tenet. The final tenet, the act of dissociating gender and sex, allows the audience to see gender for what it is, a performance. The photographs illustrate a stark distinction between the male and female halves of each performer's identity. This forces the audience to accept that one individual, regardless of sex, has the capacity to evoke dominant perceptions of femininity and masculinity, even to their relative extremes. As a result, the half-drag series successfully fulfills the final tenet. After explicating the half-drag series through the lens provided by Francis, we can now answer a research question and delve into the implications. First, how does Leland Bobet's half-drag series utilize traditional depictions of masculine and feminine identities to subvert the gender binary? The answer, as shown through our analysis, is by simultaneously expressing undeniably masculine and feminine identities within a single subject. By capturing the hyperbolic performance of seemingly dichotomous genders coexisting in a single actor, the half-drag series succeeds in highlighting the fluidity of gender performance. Considering the impact of challenging and effectively tearing down this dominant gender framework, it is imperative that we consider implications on the rhetorical and social levels. On the rhetorical level, the half-drag series serves as a testament to the power of juxtaposition as a strategy for combating polarization. Specifically, rather than trying to bridge the gap between extremes by looking solely for a middle ground, this series demonstrates that similarities can also be revealed by bringing together the two furthest poles of a given spectrum, by showing how seemingly incongruous ideas or identities can simultaneously inhabit a single actor. A fuller range of possibilities becomes tangible. This strategy could prove particularly effective in bridging gaps based on political, religious, and even social ideologies, by showing that these poles are often not as distant as they seem. On the social level, the half-drag series serves as an alternative to the dual gender matrix. In spite of social progress, the gender binary continues to permeate all facets of society. Even in the LGBT community, where deviations from traditional gender expectations are embraced, those who cannot be easily identified as part of one half of this gender spectrum, like those who identify as trans, are disproportionately persecuted. However, as Bobet's project demonstrates, drag performers, particularly if they're willing to embrace the ambiguity of their own gender identities, have the potential to alter popular perceptions of gender stratification. It was drag queens who surprised many with their strength when they literally fought for LGBT equality during the Stonewall riots. And now, nearly 45 years later, the queens of New York City are still fighting for greater acceptance of the infinite range of human potential. After comprehending the framework by Francis and applying it to Bobet's half-drag series, we were able to draw critical implications of a project that challenges traditional definitions of sex and gender by quite literally engendering greater acceptance for all. Now, although many gender scholars were very quick to accept Butler's notion of gender as this performed construct, society's been a little less eager to follow suit. Yet this project boldly attempts to drag more believers on board.